I want you to imagine, for a moment, that every plan you ever made, every promise to yourself you ever whispered in the quiet of the night, depended entirely on one thing: your discipline. Have you ever noticed how, just when a goal seems almost within reach, subtle cracks begin to form? 5 extra minutes in bed, one more unattended email, a skipped practice session, and before you know it, the bridge to your success has collapsed beneath you? I've seen countless high achievers falter not because they lack talent or vision, but because they failed to recognize the early tremors of a discipline deficit. Today, I'm going to show you how to reclaim the power you once had before those cracks turned into chasms. Discipline isn't a lofty ideal reserved for a chosen few. It's the daily currency we spend on the moments that truly matter. Yet studies tell us that nearly 80% of people abandon their goals within the first month, not from a lack of desire, but from a failure to maintain consistent, disciplined action. I want you to feel the weight of that statistic, not as a burden, but as a wake-up call. When you understand that every excuse you utter chips away at your confidence, you begin to appreciate how vital it is to catch those small slips before they become uncontrollable falls. Over the next 40 minutes, I will guide you through a practical, step-by-step journey, 7 distinct chapters designed to reset your mind, your emotions, and your surroundings, so you can rebuild unwavering self-control. You will learn to spot the warning signs of slipping discipline, debunk the myths that keep you forcing willpower into exhaustion, and harness the emotional fire of frustration to fuel your recommitment. I will teach you a powerful 24-hour challenge that jumpstarts transformation, a rapid-fire environment reboot to clear mental clutter, and a simple blueprint for micro-disciplines that become automatic. Together, we will forge a social contract that magnifies your accountability and cements your new path. By the end of this session, you will not only understand why your discipline deserted you, but you will hold a clear, actionable plan to reclaim it and keep it for good. I promise you, this is not another motivational pep talk. It is a strategic roadmap grounded in neuroscience, real-world examples, and time-tested methods I have used with thousands of individuals to break free from the cycle of start and stop. So lean in, take a deep breath, and prepare to answer the call of your own potential. Let's begin with the first chapter, the discipline deficit alarm. There is a discipline deficit alarm that in the quiet moments before your day truly begins. There exists an almost imperceptible signal that discipline is slipping away, a flicker in your resolve so subtle you hardly notice it. I remember standing at my desk one morning, coffee growing cold, my journal unopened, simply because I told myself I'd start fresh tomorrow. It was in that single delay that I felt the tremor, the tiny fracture in my commitment that, if left unchecked, would widen until the bridge to my goals lay in ruins. Recognizing that first tremor is the point at which you reclaim control. Weeks turned into months. I watched as missed micro-commitments accumulated. 5 extra minutes in bed became an extra hour. A skipped workout grew into abandoned routines. And the excuses whispered in my mind became an ever-present dialogue of self-sabotage. I've seen high performers fail not because they lacked vision, but because they ignored those early warning signs. Creeping procrastination, creeping rationalizations, creeping detachment. Each small choice to delay or diminish an action is a brick removed from the bridge of discipline. Have you ever noticed how a single excuse unfurls into a cascade of justifications? I invite you now to sense how your own patterns emerge. The moment you allow a minor lapse to pass without scrutiny, you give your mind permission to devalue the next commitment. In my work with executives and entrepreneurs, I've guided them to catalog every instance when intent met resistance, transforming awareness into an immediate alert system. It is through this conscious reporting that we light the beacon before the path disappears entirely. Remember this truth as you move forward. Recognizing the smallest slip is the first act of self-governance. With the alarm clearly sounding you, equip yourself with the power to intervene, not after the collapse, but at the very first crack. In our next chapter, we will challenge the misconception that sheer willpower alone can restore what has been lost. Check out this reboot myth. Why doesn't forcing willpower restore discipline? There's a powerful story I share with my audiences about a steel bridge bent under too much pressure, only to collapse when demand peaks. In much the same way, Your willpower is a finite resource. I remember the day I tried to double my study hours without pause, convinced that sheer force of will would carry me through. By mid-afternoon, exhaustion set in, my focus shattered, and every small temptation felt irresistible. What I didn't realize then was that I was overloading my neural circuitry, demanding more than sustainable self-control could supply. Our brains operate on a delicate balance of neurotransmitters and energy reserves. When we habitually push harder, we flood ourselves with stress chemicals, cortisol, and adrenaline. That, in excess, damage the very circuits we rely on for self-regulation. The result is what neuroscientists call ego depletion, a state in which each successive act of self-control feels heavier than the last, until even trivial choices become insurmountable. I've coached countless professionals who, after 1 or 2 marathon days of self-discipline, found themselves back at square one, convinced they had no power to continue. Yet there's an alternative path, one grounded in the science of recovery and restoration. Just as athletes alternate intense training with active rest to build strength, we too must implement neuroresets that give our brains a moment to recharge. It isn't about surrendering to temptation, but about strategically withdrawing from the battle long enough to rebuild the internal resources needed for sustainable effort. This balanced approach not only preserves willpower, but actually strengthens our capacity for future self-control. Consider the last time you felt truly refreshed, perhaps after a short walk, a deep breath, or a pause in focused work. In that space, your mind regained its clarity, decisions felt easier, and momentum returned. By acknowledging that forcing willpower without pause is a losing strategy, you open the door to disciplined rest, micro breaks, brief mental diversions, or simple rituals that signal to your brain it's safe to recover. This is not weakness. It is strategic mastery over your own energy. As we move forward, keep in mind that genuine discipline is born from harmony between effort and rest. When you release the myth that more force equals more results, you create room for a lasting, resilient form of self-control, one that can weather stress, maintain consistency, and carry you toward the goals you truly value. In our next chapter, we will ignite your transformation with a bold 24-hour zero-excuse challenge to jumpstart your renewed discipline. Step 1. The 24-hour zero-excuse challenge. Imagine waking tomorrow with a fierce resolve not to utter a single excuse. For the next 24 hours, every time your mind whispers, "I'll do it later," or "just this once won't hurt," you pause, acknowledge the impulse, and log it in a simple accountability notebook. I've found that this immediate confrontation of our own rationalizations shines a spotlight on the very patterns that erode our consistency, transforming vague intentions into crystal-clear commitments as you move through your day. Notice how each recorded excuse serves as both a red flag and a springboard. When I first applied this challenge, I carried my notebook everywhere, at breakfast, in meetings, even during breaks, so that no fleeting justification could slip by unnoticed. The act of writing down the exact thought that held me back forced me to externalize my internal dialogue, breaking its power over my actions. In that simple ledger, I found the key to interrupting procrastination at its source. That I recall a CEO I worked with who feared his workload justified every postponement, until he dedicated one day to zero excuses. By hour 6, he realized that almost every delay stemmed from habitual discomfort rather than genuine obstacles. With each log entry, he replaced a moment of avoidance with immediate, purposeful movement. By midnight, his small wins had piled up into a tidal wave of momentum, reminding him that discipline is cultivated one choice at a time. Reflect on how your own day could transform under this pressure test. As you note each slip, you reclaim the power to question it and to act anyway. In committing to zero excuses for 24 hours, you create a micro-reset so intense that it rewires both your confidence and your habits. Carry this insight forward. Consistency is born from the courage to confront our weakest moments and choose resolution instead. You will use the frustration to make a new commitment. There are moments when our own frustration smolders like embers beneath a collapsed fire, waiting for a breath of air to spark renewed flames of determination. I remember standing in my study after another round of setbacks, feeling the sting of regret wash over me. Instead of burying that frustration under busy work or self-criticism, I learned to lean into it, naming the emotion, feeling its weight in my chest, and then redirecting its energy toward a fresh pledge. In that moment of conscious acknowledgement, frustration transformed from a paralyzing force into a catalyst for powerful recommitment. Understanding emotional backdraft requires embracing the tension between disappointment and possibility. When we admit that past efforts fell short, we create space to rebuild stronger foundations. I often guide leaders through a simple pause, closing their eyes, breathing into the frustration, and then stating aloud one clear intention to move forward. In doing so, they witness frustration not as failure, but as feedback, the raw material for forging a deeper resolve. It is here, at the intersection of honest self-assessment and forward-looking vision, that true discipline is rekindled. Consider how you've responded the last time you felt let down by your own choices. Did you react with avoidance, blaming external factors, or did you face the discomfort head-on? By holding space for frustration, feeling it fully for a brief interval, you deprive it of its power to derail you. Instead, you transmute its intensity into a declaration, "I will recommit." In my experience, this moment of transformation is magnified when you capture it in writing or voice. The act of articulating your renewed intent cements the shift from past regret to future action. As you integrate this approach, remember that emotional backdraft is not a one-time event, but a practice you return to whenever old patterns resurface. Each time you honor the frustration, you deepen your capacity to respond with clarity and strength. In the next chapter, we will reboot your environment, physical and digital, to remove the hidden obstacles that drain your energy and erode your discipline. You will do an environment reset, clearing physical and digital clutter. That I've learned that a cluttered environment is like a fog that seeps into the mind, dulling clarity and draining motivation. The morning I stepped into my office after weeks of neglect, I felt a heaviness settle over me as I gazed at stacks of papers, random gadgets, and a desktop littered with half-open tabs. In that moment, I realized that every stray object and every unaddressed notification was siphoning off my mental energy, making discipline feel like an uphill climb through molasses. By dedicating just 15 minutes to a focused reset, I discovered how quickly I could reclaim that lost momentum. I began with my desk, removing everything that didn't serve my highest priorities: old reports, empty coffee cups, and dusty knickknacks. Next, I tackled my computer screen, closing unused windows, organizing files into clear folders, and silencing non-essential alerts. As I worked, I noticed my breathing slow, my thoughts sharpen, and a sense of space open up both around me and within me. This environment reboot became a ritual I repeat whenever I sense friction in my workflow. It isn't about perfection or obsessive tidiness. It's a targeted act of respect for your focus. When your physical and digital spaces align with your goals, you eliminate hidden resistance and allow your discipline to flow unimpeded. In our next chapter, we will design a daily blueprint of micro-disciplines that latch onto your environment and become effortless routines. Ritual restart. Crafting a micro-discipline daily blueprint. Each morning, I remind myself that grand ambitions are built on the foundation of tiny, unwavering acts. I choose 3 non-negotiable habits, simple actions that require minimal effort yet yield profound impact, and I bind each one to a consistent trigger. For me, the first sip of coffee becomes the cue to review my top 3 goals. The act of placing my journal on the desk signals the moment for a 2-minute gratitude reflection, and closing my office door marks the commitment to a 5-minute planning exercise. By anchoring these micro-disciplines to cues already woven into my routine, I transform choice into habit, allowing disciplined action to unfold without debate. Over time, these small rituals accumulate like individual bricks in the bridge of self-control, strengthening under the weight of repetition. I keep a simple visual tracker, a row of checkboxes in my planner, that lights up with each completed habit, turning abstract intentions into tangible momentum. When one micro-discipline falters, I return to the trigger and rebuild, knowing that consistency grows not from flawless execution, but from the courage to restart. With this daily blueprint in place, I no longer rely on fleeting motivation. Instead, I move forward on autopilot, each micro-habit propelling me closer to the life I intend to lead. Use an accountability amplifier. Discipline blossoms most vibrantly when it is witnessed by another. I recall a moment early in my career when I hesitated to begin a new writing project, debating internally whether today was the right day to start. It was only after I called a colleague and promised to share my first draft by evening that I felt a surge of energy. By invoking that small, spoken contract, I transformed my private intention into a public commitment. The mere knowledge that someone else awaited my progress lit a fire under my resolve and carried me through every resistance. Over time, I discovered that these social agreements need not be grand gestures. A brief morning check-in, a shared progress log, or even a simple text message at day's end can act as a powerful amplifier of self-discipline. One of my clients, an entrepreneur struggling to maintain her writing habit, partnered with a friend who agreed to receive daily updates. Within a week, her productivity doubled, not because her motivation suddenly soared, but because each update invoked a subtle accountability loop, nudging her to honor the promise she had made. The beauty of social contracts lies in the way they multiply the stakes of our smallest actions. When you entrust your intention to another, you create a ripple effect. Your partner feels empowered by your progress, and you feel compelled to uphold the trust placed in you. I've witnessed pairs of colleagues, spouses, and friends who, by exchanging brief end-of-day reflections, have sustained habits that alone would have fallen by the wayside. In that mutual exchange, discipline becomes a shared pursuit rather than a solitary struggle. By weaving social contracts into your reset protocol, you convert solitary commitments into collective ventures. Each conversation, each check-in, each promise kept reinforces not only your own resolve, but also the bond of mutual support that sustains it. I see clearly how each chapter builds upon the last. From the moment we heeded the first tremor of slipping resolve, to the revelation that relentless force fractures our will, to the fierce reset of 24 hours without excuses. We learned to transform frustration into fuel, to clear the visual and mental fog that clouds our focus, to construct unshakable micro-habits, and finally to enlist the power of another's witness in magnifying our accountability. Together, these steps form a cohesive path, a bridge rebuilt brick by brick toward lasting self-discipline. I want you to feel the weight of your own potential resting in your hands right now. You possess the clarity to spot those subtle cracks before they widen, the wisdom to balance effort with strategic rest, and the courage to challenge yourself in ways that spark deep transformation. When you commit to the zero-excuse challenge, you prove to yourself that consistency is not reserved for the naturally disciplined. It is forged through deliberate practice. When you harness frustration, you convert past disappointment into unwavering resolve. When you clear your environment and craft daily rituals, you remove friction and invite automatic progress. And when you share your intent with another, you create a force multiplier that propels you forward. Now, it is time for you to decide. Will you allow old patterns to govern your life, or will you step firmly onto this renewed bridge of discipline and walk toward the future you deserve? The choice is yours, and it carries more weight than any fleeting motivation ever could. Begin today by choosing one action from our roadmap and execute it without hesitation. Then reach out to your reset partner, share your first victory, and feel the momentum grow. If this message resonated with you, I invite you to subscribe to the channel. Each week, I share insights and practical strategies to help you unlock new levels of performance and purpose. Join me, and let's continue this journey together, because the world needs your disciplined brilliance now more than ever.